Good morning. How you guys doing today? Everybody's doing well? Yeah. My name is Dwight Gooden. I played Major League Baseball for 16 years.
Dwight Gooden strikes out the side for the second consecutive inning.
Everybody can hoop and holler about this one was good, that was good. None was greater than Doc Gooden.
Better than Clayton Kershaw, better than Matt Harvey, better than all of them. I mean, he was the best I ever saw.
He was instantly spectacular.
When I first seen Doc, I thought he was a shoo-in for a Hall of Fame.
It's just something special that God put on this earth to terrorize hitters. You had to be here, and you had to see a 19-year-old light up New York City.
Dwight Gooden has really set this town on its ear. In fact, all of baseball.
It's been 30 years since my rookie year coming to the league. And what would I give to go back to that moment? When you're going through something like that at 19 years old, you think this is something that's normal that you're going to be doing for a long time. And you don't get to enjoy the moment while you're in that moment. I wish I could just go back and relive that moment.
Shea Stadium, late 1970s. It had become home to a team synonymous with losing and laughable play. In this post-Tom Seaver era, there was no star power in sight and no fans in the seats.
Shea was always a morgue when you played there. I came in with the Cardinals, it was, you know, you go in there and you'd have to find ways to get up for the game because there'd be like maybe 5,000 people in the ballpark.
It looked like there was more ushers than there was fans. It was almost worse than a spring training game or like a B game on one of the back fields.
Shea Stadium really was a tomb. I mean, there was just nobody there to watch them, and there was no reason to. And the Mets were existing in this sort of vacuum. Nobody cared about them. None of their players were interesting enough.
Meanwhile, down in Tampa, Florida, a pitching prodigy who would eventually light up the Barron Stadium in Queens was beginning to take shape.
When I started playing organized baseball at the age of 7, I knew there was something there that was different than other kids. Just totally dominated, a pitching shutout after shutout. There'd be more people at the park watching me when I would pitch.
Dwight Eugene Gooden has been a star attraction for almost as long as he can remember. But what would become a pattern throughout his life started on those Tampa Little League fields. Pressure to succeed.
I remember my parents coming to the game. For some strange reason, I still can't figure it out, was I nervous to play in front of them? Because when it was my turn to hit, I wouldn't go hit. I just didn't want to fail in front of my parents, and I didn't want to let them down.
Looked at from the outside, you would say that he had an overprotective, domineering father. And there are a lot of signs of that. I mean, the fact that from the time Dwight was a little bitty kid, Dad was dragging him out to the local playground and drilling him, not just playing baseball with him, but drilling him on the skills and fundamentals of this game. The impact that that had on him was profound. Dwight understood that this is my dad's dream. Dwight didn't wake up one day and say, I want to be a professional ball player. His dad planted that idea.
When I got 12, 13 years old, we'll be watching the game. He'll have his beer and chips. I have my cookies and juice, what have you. Even though at that time I didn't quite know what he was doing, but he would quiz me during the games. What pitch would you throw here? Why would you throw that pitch? What do you think the hitter was looking for? And I thought it was just a game. As I got older, I started realizing what he was doing.
Dan Gooden's determination to turn his son into the player he never became started paying dividends. And as young Dwight continued to blow away his Little League competition, he earned a nickname that would stick forever.
My dad had a friend. He would always come to the games. I'm sure they've had a couple of drinks, before the game. And he would come to the fence. Anytime I got 2 strikes on the batter, and he always say, "Come on, Doc, operate on him, Doc. Come on, Doc. Got another patient, Doc. Put him away, Doc."
The boy now known as Doc would go on to dominate the high school circuit and capture the attention of big league scouts. In the 1982 Major League Baseball draft, the New York Mets would select the right-hander with the 5th overall pick. For Dwight, the reality of life away from Tampa was daunting.
It was very hard leaving home for the first time. I was 17, now I'm on the plane flying to Kingsport, Tennessee. It didn't really hit me till once I got on the plane and they fastened the seatbelts and we're getting ready to take off. Then I'm like, wow, I'm leaving home. I started crying, and it's crazy because I started having doubts that, am I ready for this? Is this really what I want to do? I want to go back home, maybe just get a job. I mean, I just got drafted number 5 overall by the Mets, and I'm still thinking about, I want to be back with my parents.
He'd never been anywhere. He'd never lived away from the people who brought him up. And so as he was staring off into the future, sitting on that airplane and really not knowing where it was going to land, what was in store for him, he was scared.
Ready or not, the 17-year-old Gooden was on his own, where in the Mets farm system, his vulnerability showed immediately.
I remember him losing the first game. He cried.
Al's right. I got beat, I lost the game, and I came in the dugout sitting there and everybody's walking to the locker room, and I was just tearing up.
He said, man, I'm sorry. You know, I said, don't worry about it.
You lose a game, you know, you want to win so bad, or you want to help the team so bad, and you feel like you let them down, and it hurts, because every game I went out there, I pitched in my heart, I gave it everything I had, so when I would lose, it would really bother me.
One way to avoid that was not to lose. The young Gooden quickly settled in and began to show his stuff.
I saw this and I said, wow, this kid is awesome. He had everything. Where you gonna find an 18-year-old kid that throws in the upper 90s, sometime 100, with command? Oh my God, that's 1 in a million. The numbers were just adding up, adding up. That was no competition in the minor leagues for him.
I remember talking to Sammy Palazzo, and he said, as coaches, we used to sit on the bench when Doc was pitching, and we'd put our gloves over our faces so the opponents wouldn't see us laughing.
A 19-4 record with 300 strikeouts in one minor league season was more than enough to start some chatter up north about the young flamethrower in the farm system.
Nobody strikes out 300 at any level. It's unheard of. I personally was looking forward to seeing this kid with like this unbelievable arm. 300 strikeouts to me was like, wow, who is he?
After his brief yet eye-opening stint in the minors, 19-year-old Dwight Gooden was invited to the Mets spring training camp in February of 1984. Blowing away hitters in the Carolina League was one thing, but now he would have to prove himself on a whole new level. Surrounded by players he watched on TV not long before, Gooden was just a boy amongst men.
Just being there was almost like being a fan and you pull the number out of a raffle and they say you won, you get to go spend time with these guys. And seeing the guys like Keith Hernandez-Brown, Huey Brooks, Mookie Wilson, George Foster, and seeing these guys, it was like, to me, it was bigger than life.
The teenage Gooden might have been in awe of the big league Mets at first, but it wasn't long until the feeling was mutual.
When I first seen Doc, I thought he was a shoo-in for a Hall of Fame.
There was an excitement from people that were watching. There was a buzz because of the popping of the Mets.
His fastball was electric, upper 90s, you know, and we're going back into the 80s where we had slow guns. You know, so how hard he would throw on a gun today, it might be triple digits.
I got to finally face him in an inter-squad game. He threw me a fastball, and it looks like he's not going to throw hard, and then it just explodes, and he jammed the hell out of me. I knew right then and there that that fastball was special.
His breaking ball was a 12-6 breaking ball that he could tell guys it was coming and they couldn't hit it when it was good. So everything that Doc did was electric.
On the last day of spring training, 1984, new Mets manager Davey Johnson told Gooden he had made the cut. The teenager was now a New York Met.
A year and a half out of high school, I'm getting to live out my dream. I'm getting to face Pete Rose and Mike Schmidt, Dale Murphy, all these guys. Then it kind of hit me. I'm like, wow, am I ready to face these guys?
On April 7th, 1984, 19-year-old Dwight Gooden was penciled in as the Mets' starting pitcher against the Houston Astros. When Dwight took the mound, Met fans back home got their first glimpse of what Mr. and Mrs. Gooden had seen since their son was 7. Power, meeting poetry in motion.
Here was this 19-year-old kid with this unbelievable delivery. There was something special about him. Even watching him in warm-ups, he had this massive delivery, this high leg kick, long flowing arms and legs. It was beautiful. It was like a symphony.
Gooden's 5-inning, 5-strikeout victory earned little ink in the next day's papers. But it wasn't long until news of an emerging star began to spread.
As we got into May, and he got into his 5th, 6th, 7th start, it was pretty apparent that you knew it was something special.
That's when we all kind of sat back and said, this kid's for real.
Curveball. Oh, what a pitch.
He was instantly spectacular.
Gooden strikes out the side for the 2nd consecutive inning.
At 19 years old, most parents they're trying to get their kid to work during the summer in between, freshman and sophomore year. This guy's dealing and striking out adults. They see their kid playing video games, and this kid is the real deal.
Grown, mature, professional hitters want no part of him. This is 19-year-old kid who was embarrassing them.
9 strikeouts. Could we see that again, or have we run out of time?
And of course, the fastball was, it defied physics, how the ball could just rise from the belt to the letters at the last second. I mean, physicists say that's impossible, but try telling that to any National League hitter who faced him.
With every Gooden performance, New York City began to bubble over with excitement. And fans who wouldn't go near Shea Stadium in the late 70s and early 80s were now flocking to it to see the teenager from Tampa.
You had to be here. You had to be on the subway and guys begging each other, come on, I gotta see Gooden on Friday. You go next week, I need the tickets. And people getting to the game at 5 o'clock instead of 6:45 because they just wanted to be in the park, in their seat, ready to go. Already had their beer, had their hot dog, can't miss a pitch. And you had to see a 19-year-old light up New York City.
The ballpark would be filled, and there was electricity in the air. He was an instant star. Instant.
He's the best thing in New York ever had.
It exploded. I mean, it really exploded.
You knew that you had a once-in-a-generation pitcher, so that it became fun. I mean, you sort of just body surfed along with Gooden. We're all part of the same phenomenon. Part of the gimmick, part of the ride with Gooden was the K corner.
See that area right up there? That is the K corner.
Obviously, when I was playing, I couldn't say this, but when you strike out a guy and they pass the ball around the infield, the third baseman was always the last guy to throw it to you. The K corner is in the left field corner. I'll always take a peek up there where I'm at.
Strikeout number 15 for the Doctor. It is a new high this season for Gooden.
Those who hadn't yet witnessed the Dr. K experience would finally get their chance at the 1984 All-Star Game in San Francisco. Oblivious to the hype, Gooden soon found out that some of his admirers were on the same field.
The thing that overwhelmed me more than anything when I had like a guy like Nolan Ryan come to me and say, man, you're fun to watch. I really look forward to the days you pitch. And I'm thinking, wow, that's Nolan Ryan, the guy I idolize, telling me that. I couldn't believe it. And it's almost like you said, why me?
When the teenager took the mound in the 5th inning, it was showtime.
Gooden with 133 strikeouts in 111 innings this season.
19 years old.
I was just blowing gas. I mean, I was just so pumped up.
2-2 pitch to Parrish. Got him swinging.
Well, for me, it's something I'd seen all year long.
So Dwight Gooden leading the bigs in strikeouts. And he strikes him out.
I certainly watched it. I don't know how he did it at 19, but he did it, man.
And Gooden strikes out the side.
That was pretty special. Yes, it was.
Dwight years ago in Tampa, Florida, and at the age of 19 comes into the All-Star game and strikes out the side.
When Dwight came in, you watch all these older players, and I'm talking about older players when they're 27, 28, and he came to the bench, and they were like 10-year-olds, waiting to like get a handshake or a high five or to touch him. That's how special he was, and there was a feeling that we've got the next great one.
New York, 84, everybody was partying. It was a wild time. I mean, it was the Reagan 80s. Everybody had money. Nobody knew that drugs could really kill you yet. It was just wild excess. Anything you can think of that could happen did happen. It really was the Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, that's how people lived. And the Mets were young, and they were single, and they were having a great time after games. Chances are, if you knew where to go, which bar to pick, you'd run into them afterwards.
Coming from Tampa, I was a little intimidated by the city. I just wanted to pitch. When the game was over, I'm coming home. My first year as a rookie, I used to go with the clubhouse kids because that was my age. We'll go in the neighborhood, we'll have a cookout in the neighborhood, shoot baskets, we'll do all these things that teenage kids do. And I enjoyed those guys.
Had I lived in the city, or Doc lived in the city, we'd probably be dead right now. So, because the city embraced us so much, and there was just so much going on, and the 80s were hot.
Just a few miles away from Gooden on Long Island lived Darryl Strawberry. 1983's National League Rookie of the Year, Strawberry exploded onto New York's scene just as quickly as Gooden.
Well hit right field. Way back and way out of here. The New York Mets get a much-needed victory from Darryl Strawberry's two-run homer.
As Doc and Darryl began their meteoric rise to fame together, fans watching on TV simply assumed the two were joined at the hip, not realizing a clash of personalities had begun to develop.
I didn't realize that they had a hot and cold relationship, and mainly cold until someone told me.
There was sort of an ebb and flow. They were best buddies. Sometimes they were rivals of each other. There was definitely a love-hate, which I never fully comprehended. There was a tension and at times a friction as to who was the star of the Mets.
Dwight, he was humble about what he did, but I don't think there's anything humble about Darryl. He was a rock star.
It was a very unique situation because here you have two young African Americans playing together in New York City and becoming stars early. And I think everybody think, well, they're the same, and that's not true. We're not the same. We never have been the same and never will be.
My personality, his personality was totally different. And he did want the limelight. I didn't, being quiet. I just wanted to do my job and get off the field. And it's weird too because when I was on the field, I didn't mind the spotlight, but when I got off the field, I wanted no part of that.
While Strawberry and Gooden maintained their rigid relationship, one veteran on the team took the young pitcher under his wing, both on and off the field.
Keith was a guy from day one in spring training. He was always coming over, hey, you all right? How you feel? You feel good? If I was pitching, he said, all right, go have fun tonight, go get him. I can't wait to see you pitch, stuff like that. And he was like having a pitching coach on the field.
In '84, we had Mike Fitzgerald behind the plate, who did most of the catching. He was a rookie. He didn't know the hitters. I knew the hitters. So I imparted my knowledge.
When we go on the road, he likes me, hey, what are you doing tonight? I'm gonna go grab a bite. And sometimes if you see me just sitting quiet when I'm still getting homesick, he'll come over, hey, what's going on? I said, I'm fine. He said, no, just tell me what's going on. I'll talk to him a bit. He said, okay, after the game, me and you will sit in my room, we'll go out to eat, whatever you want to do, but you're not gonna sit by yourself.
Lou Brock was that to me when I was a young player. And Lou Brock was a future Hall of Famer, All-Star. And Lou took the time out when I was young and struggling to really mentor me. So I said if I ever get in a position where the roles are reversed, I would do that back.
As the 1984 season progressed, the New York Mets, a perennial laughingstock in the late 70s and early 80s, were now a contender. Spearheading the way was its 19-year-old ace, who was forced to grow up quickly in the heat of a pennant race.
In '84, we realized we were a pretty good team. And Doc was really the leader of all that. And it was, okay, well, if we lose a couple of games, we got Doc pitching and we know we're going to win. Here we are older than Doc, and we're leaning on Doc for wins.
Around 3/4 of the way through the season, I said, I finally get to experience playing behind a Bob Gibson, a Tom Seaver, a Warren Spahn, a dominant pitcher. And it was just wonderful to go out there and watch him strike out batters and just be in awe.
2 balls, 2 strikes. The record. Dwight Gooden has set a new Major League record for strikeouts by a rookie pitcher. Ball is taken out of play. Congratulations all around as the game has been stopped. Dwight Gooden with his 11th strikeout now has 246 strikeouts. And Dwight Gooden has really set this town on its ear. In fact, all of baseball.
As the lights went down on the '84 season, and the more primed, experienced Chicago Cubs won the National League East, Dwight Gooden had won 17 games, had an ERA of 2.60, and struck out 276 batters. The 1984 National League Rookie of the Year was now a star in New York City, but held firm to the values he grew up with in Tampa.
He was humble about what he did. He really cared, and it mattered to him that he pitched well for his family. I mean, 19 years old, he's still a kid, you know. It mattered to him what his dad thought.
As soon as the season was over, within 2 days, I'm on a plane, I'm going home. And it's like, basically like a relief for myself to calm down, come back to reality, fit back in with my family, hang out with my parents. And it was getting away from all that New York stuff. Once I got home, you know, I'm back into my comfort zone.
He's Rookie of the Year who never moved out of his mama's house. The kid from Florida and all the wide-eyed naivete that implies, that innocence hangs on. He lingered in many ways as that little boy on the playground with his father saying, wow, I'm pretty good at this. How far can I go with this? Where's this going to take me?
The Mets' greatest milestone may have come when catcher Gary Carter was acquired from the Montreal Expos in the offseason. Carter is unquestionably the finest catcher in baseball today.
When perennial all-star Gary Carter arrived on the scene in 1985, he not only brought with him unparalleled exuberance, but also a stabilizing presence for the team's 20-year-old ace.
He was always smiling, always happy-go-lucky, this cheering guy. And I was saying to myself, this can't be real. This guy, I mean, come on, you can't be like that every day. But that's who he was. He had a big passion for the game, just like I did, where we could sit in the clubhouse after our game and watch somebody else play. And we just started talking about family, talking about his kids. And he also talked to me a lot about the preparation of taking care of yourself and being mentally ready for the game, how special the game is. It's a privilege to play the game, and there's no coincidence that I had my career year, Gary's first year here.
Doc's 1985 was the best pitching performance I ever saw.
And another curveball got him looking.
That year, I was totally focused, locked in on every pitch, not just every batter, but every pitch. I just felt like when I take the mound, I'm going to win, and I'm going to dominate.
Got him with a fastball. Strikeout number 12.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
Hernandez said for all season, he has never seen a pitcher like Gooden.
It was magical, it was special. You felt like you were on the ride with him. And just hold on tight.
Strikeout of the ball game for Dwight Gooden.
I'm quite sure a lot of guys used to come to the ballpark from the other teams and used to think, you know, I got a bad hammy, I got a bad shoulder, because I know this is a 3-punch-out night.
Man, are you kidding me?
There was no going to the bathroom when he was on the mound. You might as well just stay in your seat and watch him pitch, because right here, you're looking at history.
Dwight Gooden has struck out 16 to tie his career high. He has won his 13th game in a row. It is his 13th complete game and 6th shutout of the year. The doctor was in tonight.
By the summer of '85, Dwight Gooden was at the height of his powers. And as his wins and strikeout totals skyrocketed, so did his fame.
This was Miley Cyrus and Kardashian and Kanye West and everything times a million. It was the story. It was the only story. But he had the gentleness about him. He didn't have a, stoking the fire or trying to make his brand.
Although Dwight was not interested in the marketing of Dr. K, there was no stopping Madison Avenue from doing it for him. And at 20 years old, he was now sitting atop New York City.
I was like, wow, this is more than just being a baseball pitcher now. It's bigger than that. The media attention and the demands that they wanted was way too much.
It's just part of playing in New York. And he was something special. So he was going to be, everybody came to talk to him as part of it.
It was such a special time that it had to be suffocating. There was nowhere else for it to go.
'85, after about 10 starts, I couldn't hide. Fans were following me all the way to my apartment. At that point, now just a little bit, I got to know what it was like being Michael Jackson because I couldn't go anywhere. And I was just 20 years old, and now, even though baseball is my thing, I just want to play baseball, it's bigger than that to a lot of people. I mean, you're bigger than life, whether I want it to be or not.
I'm sure that Doc had a lot of pressure on him. To be the #1 guy at 20 years old, that's a lot of stuff to put on somebody's shoulders.
I just felt like I was there to do more in '85 than just win games. I was there to put on a good show. Even if I won, I don't know, 6, 7 in a row, you felt like I gotta win that next game. Every time I felt I had to win on the road, but at home with the fans, I definitely had to win.
Although Gooden became smothered by the unwanted attention off the field, on it he continued to dominate. En route to a 24-4 record, a 1.53 ERA, 268 strikeouts, and an unprecedented 16 complete games, Gooden would become the league's youngest Sai Young winner in baseball history. It's a season many had not seen before or since.
He had the finest year of any pitcher that's ever pitched, ever.
You never will see someone at the age of 20 perform like that. Never.
Greatest single season I've ever covered. I put that right there with Pedro Martinez in 1999. People say Sandy Koufax, maybe in 63 or 65. Better than Clayton Kershaw, better than Matt Harvey. Better than all of them. I mean, it was the best I ever saw.
There's a lot of great things happened in '85. The Royals and the Cardinals played in the World Series. Who cares? It's Dwight Gooden's year.
After the season was over, I was completely mentally drained from everything, from the season, the demands, the city that never sleeps. So I was done. Your life do change, whether you want it to or not. It's going to change, even though you're living your dream, you plan something you like, but there's a lot more goes on behind the scenes.
It's hard to overstate how ill-prepared he was for sports stardom in New York. I mean, it's an amazing thing, particularly for someone as lacking self-confidence as this kid from Tampa, Florida, all of a sudden being the toast of New York. I don't know if anybody could have been prepared for that, but Dwight Gooden was especially unprepared for that.
Only a year and a half after throwing his first major league pitch, Dwight Gooden was the talk of baseball. He had gone from promising prospect to all-star pitcher to megastar, all before his 21st birthday. And after his historic 1985 season, New York's headline act was back in a familiar place, but with a new foreign set of circumstances.
85, I was starting to get a taste of the city, taste of the limelight, hanging out with celebrities. And when I went home to Tampa, got back to myself and got well rested again, I was missing that part. So I was trying to bring that atmosphere to Tampa.
Doc was great here in New York. It was never a problem here. But I think it was back home in Tampa. I think Tampa was just a horrible place for him, and I think there was a lot of jealousy of who he was, and how he became so successful so fast at such a young age. And I think there was a lot of temptations, and I think there was a lot of distraction and a lot of wrong people.
Dwight at times would have people around him that were less than Dwight. Dwight was regal, and some of the folks that were around him were not regal.
Bad influences from the Tampa neighborhood, plus idle time in the off-season, made for a combustible situation for a 21-year-old trying to come to grips with stardom. And one night in January 1986, a ticking time bomb finally exploded.
It was a very dramatic introduction to cocaine.
And I had a cousin who was actually a drug dealer. And so I was drinking at his house while he was gone. There was actually 2 women in the room doing cocaine. They started asking me, do I want to join in? Come over here. I said, no, I don't do that. I'm not going to do that. The more I was drinking, the sulfur I was getting to give in to it. So I figured a little bit won't hurt. They put it on the paper for me. I did a little bit. And unfortunately, I fell in love with it the first sniff. It became a problem. I got addicted to it very fast.
By the time the New York Mets assembled in St. Petersburg, Florida in February of 1986, their all-universe pitcher had a world of problems having nothing to do with baseball.
There was one time we were playing the Tigers in spring training. I remember the game went extra innings and I got bored, and I just went on the bus. And Doc was in the back like a cat in a cage. I just went, oh God, I hope not.
Back in New York, whether Gooden was ready or not, the show would go on. And when the curtain went up on the 1986 season, the Mets, brandishing a whole new identity, quickly became the wildest show in town.
We were like Barnum and Bailey's circus. Some people wait for the elephants. Some people are waiting for the girl that jumps through the hoops. Some people are waiting for the Walendas. That's how it was watching that team.
There was this sense of there's something going on with those guys. Who are those guys? They could have dropped us in Alaska, and it would have been who are those guys? Because they're not normal.
I can remember we had quite a few fights on the field. We were a very cocky team, loved being in that position.
We were tough, and we had a confidence about us. We had cockiness about us. We had swagger about us. It was fun to be crazy.
We were a fiery bunch. Ray Knight had a lot of vim and vigor. Wally had a lot of vim and vigor, so did Lenny. And it was fun. It was fun. The people loved us.
For 24 members of the Mets, the 1986 season was as good as it gets.
They're spreading the news that they are right now the dominant team in this game, in either league.
But for one, the pressure to perform an encore after a dominant season the year before started to take its toll.
86 was always compared to 85. I just beat Fernando Venezuela 3-0, complete game. Get to my locker. First question was, what happened? You only had 4 strikeouts. And at that point, even before I started talking, I'm like, man, nothing's enough.
If he struck out 9, he had a bad day. It was like, well, what was wrong with him today?
He had made the expectations so high because of how great he was. And when he went out there every night, no one thought anyone should get a hit off of Doc Gooden.
From that point on, it was downhill for myself for enjoying the game the way I was enjoying it the first 2 years, because I allowed someone else to take the fun away from the game, and then I started taking it away from myself, thinking I had to go out, pitch a shutout, 10 strikeouts, and a complete game. Now those numbers are not coming up as quite often as they did before. It did feel like I was letting everybody down.
There's a lot that goes into New York. It's a totally different universe. And I think as a young man, it would be even harder to walk along that coastline and without getting some waves thrown on you and, you know, going, man, what's going on here? You know, this is a bit much for me.
It's a humbling person that happens to. Very humble people, I think, struggle with that, and that's Dwight.
At one point, it was like, you know, Darling's getting better, Fernandez is getting better, blankety blank's getting better, but, you know, Dwight's having an off year. And when that happens, you know, there's questions, why?
The heavy drinking started. I started drinking way more. Even after games I would win, if I didn't get the strikeouts, I was drinking more so I can get it off my mind and go to sleep. I started using more. But at that time, I thought I was okay. I'm not hurting anybody. You know, I haven't lost anything yet. It was just destroying myself, trying to keep it all inside, and it was just building up and festering inside.
Despite his issues on and off the mound, Gooden's raw talent helped carry him toward a 17-win, 200-strikeout season. And for one night in September, with a trip to the postseason just one win away, Gooden was able once again to embrace the spotlight.
Oh, what a curveball that was.
During the season, I was always compared to the 85 stars no matter what I did. But at that moment, that night, all that's removed.
Ground ball to second. Backman to Hernandez. The inevitable has finally become a reality. On September 17th, the New York Mets become champions of the National League's Eastern Division for 1986.
Winning that game, to me, was like, that's the way it's supposed to be. Okay, I got the fire back. This is what happened. This is what everybody wants. This is what I want. This is what the media expects. The fans want that. And for that day, and probably the next couple of days to do that, it felt like 85. I had again that feeling that I had going into the postseason.
Gooden rode that momentum into the 1986 NLCS versus the Houston Astros. And after a strong performance in Game 1 and a brilliant one in Game 5, the doctor seemed to have regained his Cy Young form. When they eliminated the Astros in Game 6, the Mets were World Series bound, and its 21-year-old franchise pitcher would have the opportunity to regain the title of New York's Crown Prince.
This is the biggest stage to be on, my first World Series. We're playing the Red Sox. And unfortunately, it came at the wrong time where I just basically had nothing left. It hit a wall. The team depended on me to do well. I was the ace. And a lot of times when the ace don't do his job, it deflates the team a little bit.
No one wants to be a failure in big games, and Doc had never failed in big games. You know, it just happens to be the biggest stage, and, you know, most people say, did he choke? No, he didn't choke. You know, he just didn't have his stuff.
In Game 6, the Mets were staring right into the face of elimination.
And the Red Sox are 2 outs away from a championship.
And Gooden was facing an entire offseason of guilt.
I actually went in the clubhouse. It was just down. I mean, just down. You couldn't believe it. I remember talking to Keith, who came in the clubhouse, and I said, man, I can't believe this. He's like, yeah, it sucks. We had a good year, but it don't mean anything. We got to this point, came down. And by he saying, it don't mean anything, we got to this point, you know, we came up short. I thought he was talking to me, which he wasn't, but I took it that way because I was already down on myself. And I was thinking, man, if I would pitch good, one of those games we got the win, it would have made a big difference. I was very depressed. I was down after that because I thought it's over.
Of course, what happened after is now history.
And the pitch by Stanley, and a ground ball trickling. It is a fair ball. Pitched by Buckner. Rounding third night. The Mets will win the ball game. The Mets win.
2 nights later, the Mets were champions.
He struck him out. Struck him out. The Mets have won the World Series.
Winning the World Series, something you always dreamed of as a kid. It's like you're lifted off the ground, you're just floating in the air, you can't believe it. And to do it in New York, in front of your home crowd, everybody's behind you, all the media's out there, the fans are rushing the field. You go through all that. Now you're in the clubhouse, you're popping champagne, you're hugging everybody, you're hugging the front office, you're hugging the security guards, everybody, just having a blast. That day should have been the greatest day of my baseball life. Turned into the worst day of my baseball life.
After being crowned the world champions of baseball in 1986, and with the victory parade through Manhattan just hours away, it was party time for the league's wildest party team.
We had a rough night after we won that series.
I remember going to a place where I was sitting next to Robert De Niro and Mike Tyson, Sean Penn, I mean, anyone you could name. I didn't sleep that night.
It was a long celebration because we were a wild bunch, and we went to a couple bars, and we just lived it up. But we knew the next day, we knew we had to be up and get prepared for a parade.
It was such chaos. You're on this float, you're on this one, you're in this car, you're in that car.
So there was none of that, who's not here. None of that thought until, you see all the players sitting. And now it's like, whoa, wait a minute. We're missing a few, but only one really mattered.
It was celebrating my teammates in the clubhouse. I went back out on the field by the pitcher's mound with some of the pitchers. We just taking pictures and drinking champagne and hugging one another. I go back in, I go in the trainer's room. I called my dad the moment with him. We had a great talk, good father-to-son conversation. He told me how happy and proud he was of me, the things I had accomplished. After that call, the next call went to a drug dealer. My goal was to go there, cop some drugs, and meet the team at this bar we was celebrating. I go there in Long Island at some projects, meet this guy there. I was in his house, about 8 other people there. As you're getting high and you're drinking, they become your best friends. The clock is moving so fast that you're thinking, okay, I'll leave 1 more hour, I'll have another drink, I'll do another line, then I'm gonna leave. Now it's like, before you know it, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're aware that we're supposed to be at the ballpark by 9 for the parade. You're sick thinking, because you're out of your mind, 1 more hour, then I'm gonna leave. Then the hour go by, you say, okay, well, I'm gonna beat the sun. As long as I beat the sun, I'm fine.
I came to knock on his door, and there was no answer. I guess it's just like, where is he?
Was there concern? Yes. Yes, as much as I try to be like, no, yes, there was concern. There was a major level of concern of where he was.
Next thing you know, the parade comes on TV, and here I am in this drug house watching the parade on the TV. Horrible, horrible feeling. I mean, I felt depressed, sad, self-pity, just horrible, felt like a loser. Also thought, how can I just disappear? I never thought suicidal, but I'll be lying to say if it didn't cross my mind that day. Now, watching the parade basically sobers me up, because all the depression, everything comes in, the reality comes in. So now I get in my car, I'm walking to my car, the sun's up. I can't imagine what I looked like at that time. I'm driving to my apartment, just thinking, the Mets gonna know, my teammates gonna know, my parents gonna know, the fans gonna know. What am I gonna say? How can I get out of this?
And throughout all of the Mets hoopla, there was one Met who missed it all, Dwight Gooden. One of the Mets' ace pitchers was a no-show. Where was Dwight? Well, the Mets' public relations people say that he overslept.
I wish I'd asked for help at that time, or let someone know how I really was feeling, instead of hiding behind a smile, instead of hiding behind, oh, I'm fine, I'm okay, everything's all right, I'm great, and bleeding inside.
In the parade's aftermath, rumors about the Met star having a drug problem began to circulate. Then, in the spring of 1987, those suspicions were confirmed when Gooden failed a drug test administered by Major League Baseball. The result was a 60-game suspension. And although he showed flashes of brilliance in the following years, it was clear that Dwight Gooden's best days were already behind him.
In the spring of 1990, we were having a heart-to-heart. in the clubhouse in Port St. Lucie. And he said, you know what I miss? I miss being great.
In 1994, Gooden failed another drug test, and then another. The punishment, a full season suspension for 1995, and an unceremonious release from the New York Mets. Despite one magical night in 1996 where, as a Yankee, he notched his one and only no-hitter, Gooden faded away into baseball obscurity, a far cry from how he exploded onto the scene in 1984. His post-playing days were defined by chronic visits to drug and alcohol rehab, multiple relapses, countless run-ins with the law, and prison time. 30 years after he skyrocketed to stardom, one could only look back at how it all went wrong.
Beneath that veneer of excellence, of total dominance, you know, somebody that hitters feared, it was shocking to me how shy and needy he was, and meek almost in a way. Just a kid. He was just a kid who just had never been exposed to the big city. Just a suburban kid who loved his dad and his mom. And it was like a little lamb being led to slaughter. If you think about mid-'80s New York City, it just wasn't ready. You know, it was almost a tragedy waiting to happen. You could see it coming 100 miles away. He was such a nice guy. He had such a sweet, sweet side to him that really offered him no defense to the evils that were out there.
Good morning. How you guys doing today? Everybody's doing well? Yeah. My name is Dwight Gooden. I played Major League Baseball for 16 years. I just want to share my experience, my strength, and my hope for you guys.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
After decades of drug and alcohol abuse, Dwight Gooden is now conquering demons far more destructive than any Major League batter who ever faced him. The father of 7 has been clean and sober since March 24th, 2010.
He knew he was going to die. Addicts talk about hitting bottom. There is no lower bottom than that. That was bottom. Him believing, if I don't get a grip on this thing, I am going to die. And in a way, that's the biggest triumph of Dwight Gooden. Forget the Rookie of the Year, forget the Sai Young Award and all the cheering fans and the K Corner and all that feeling that he gave millions of sports fans, not just in New York, but across the country. Forget all of that. What is truly extraordinary about that man is that he found somewhere inside himself the power to save his own life.
It's been 30 years since my rookie year coming to the league, and what would I give to go back to that moment? I think for me personally, I wish I would have enjoyed it more. And what I mean by that, when you're going through something like that at 19 years old, you think this is something that's normal that you're going to be doing for a long time, and you don't get to enjoy the moment while you're in that moment. And I wish I could just go back and relive that moment.
Unfortunately, Dwight Gooden cannot turn back time to 1984 and do it all over again. He, along with the rest of us, can only look back and remember how a wonder kid known as Dr. K stood front and center under the world's brightest lights and put on a show that still resonates 30 years later.
It was just something special that God put on this earth to terrorize hitters. It was just one of those special guys that come down the line. It was him.
He was remarkable. I mean, he was incredible for such a young pitcher to be able to pitch in the big leagues and do what he did. Everybody can hoop and holler about this one was good, that was good. None was greater than Doc Gooden.
Watching Dwight pitch was, you know, if you're a ballet fan, watching Nureyev. There's virtuosos in this town in New York every day playing violin or cello or whatever. So why wouldn't it happen in baseball? But it wasn't, you know, that he put up the numbers. That was great enough. It wasn't that he did it in the New York stage, which is huge. But for me, it was like what Mozart must have been at some point. We got a peek into greatness that makes you feel very mortal. And that's what it was like being around Dwight.